Okay, in this video, what we're going to look at is some more paired tag elements that can be used with forms. Now, in class, we last looked at a form that used tables to make the form look pretty nice. We also saw that this was an echo server, and we used it. So once you press the go button, the echo server responds and gives you back an echo of what variables you sent. So we looked at text elements. We looked at select boxes here, and the selected is the default value. We looked at text area, where you can have like a paragraph. We looked at radio buttons, and notice that the name in radio buttons has to be the same for each option that you have. And we looked at checkboxes, and checkboxes has the same thing, that the name for each checkbox item has to be the same as what, so refer for each checkbox item. And we had a submit button. Submit, it should say button, but it says submit, and that's what renders the go button. And often there's a session ID, and we noticed that this was hidden. So now we're just going to do this form again in a slightly different way with some new elements called Fieldset, Legend, and Label, and just see what they offer. Okay, so let's begin by creating a subdirectory called Forms. And within that subdirectory, we're going to have an index.html file. So new text document, index.html. And open that up in Notepad++ and put in the usual tags. So if you're working this with me, get to this point and then resume the video. Okay, so I've just put in the form element, and I'll put in the closing tag. And instead of a table this time, we're going to use a different technique to make the form look nice. We're going to use something called Fieldset. So I'm going to put an ID in here so that we'd be able to style this. And I'm just going to say user info. That'll be this section name. And there's another tag element called legend, which is very useful. And I'm going to put user information in here and close that. And let's just save it and have a look and see what these two offer us. So what they offer us is a box and a nice label right here, which of course we can easily style by putting something in for the user info. We might want to change the color of the text to purple, and whatever else we want to do. Another thing we can do is have a field set within a field set. So let's put an ID here, and we'll call this gender. So we're going to ask a question about whether the person's a male or a female. Always put in the closing tag as soon as you put the opening tag, because so that you don't forget it. Now we can have a legend for this one as well. And now we can put the form elements in. So input, so we're going to use radio buttons here. So input type equals radio. And we'll call this gender, the name of the question. And we'll start it off with a default value of male. What we want the user to see, we'll put that in a minute. But we'll have this as the default. So we're going to say checked equals checked. And we'll have an ID here. And we'll call this the male gender. Let me make this a little wider. Now what we can do is we can then just say male right after this and copy this and put in female next. Take out the default value. So if we take a look at this to see what we get, we're going to see the field set within a field set, and we have male and we have female. Now I should probably put in the go button as well, so that we can see what the echo server returns. But you'll notice if I click on male or female, nothing changes. Now there's a neat command called label that can allow us to click on male or female and the radio button will actually change. So that's very attractive, and it's a good idea to use. Okay, so the way that works is take out the male. I'll just take out the male and I'll do the male case first. And we say label, and we say for and give the ID of the radio button for the male gender. That sort of links the label to the line above it. And then we put what we want for the label, and then we close this. Now let's save this and have a look at it. And if we look at this, if we go to the female, now if we just click on the word male, it's a lot better because you don't have to be right in the middle of the radio button to select it. So let's do the same thing for female. Take out the word female, or you'll have it twice. And right here. So this should finish it off. Not quite. Gotta reload. Not quite. There's a mistake. Here's my mistake right here. This has to say female. So we save that. Reload, and when you click on female or you click on male, because of the label paired tag element, it works better. Okay, let's go on to the next thing, and that'll be to put in the send button. So I'm going to do that below the field set right here, and I'm going to call the button submit is what you use when you want a button. The name of the button will be called send button, and it'll be send. Now also too, if you want to clear, there's a reset that you can say here, and I can say reset button, and I can say reset, which will clear the form elements, or I can just say clear. And if I want that side by side, I might want some space between them, so I can put in NBSP semicolon. I can put in that character entity for the hard space, just so I have a few spaces between those buttons. And so there's my send button, and if I send that, it's going to go to the, and we have an error here. So we take a look back at the form. We notice we have action in there twice. So we take that out, save this, go back, reload the form, and there it works. Also too, we can have session variables, for example, or any hidden information. For example, let's just hide my name, for example, in a hidden variable. So I'm going to call the hidden variable session ID, and I'm going to make the value my name. So upon saving that, anything hidden will not show in the user interface. So if I go back, reload, press the send button again, I now have my name as being echoed back to me. Okay, next let's try something more challenging, like the user's address. So what I'll do is just grab this field set, and I'll just copy it in. and take out items. And I'm going to call this the address. So if we take a look and see what we get when we do that, we now have a spot for the user's address. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put in a text element. It's going to look like this. You can see it over here. And I've got the name of the element, which will be the variable name. I started off blank. This is an interesting property, placeholder. It makes it sort of dim in the back. And once you start typing in the address like this, it goes. And an ID if we want to do some more styling with respect to it. If I press the clear button, everything gets reset. Okay, so here's a neat effect. I've got the street, which is a label. I've got a text box with rounded edges. I've got a placeholder in there. And for the label, I was able to put that in just by saying label street here. That covers this. And then I was able to, this is how you put in a CSS for a text box. And essentially, I make it 100% of the width available, some padding, some margin. This element is what causes it to go on to 2 lines. And we have a little border radius, very slight, around a 4-pixel border radius. And something called box sizing. So I can do the same thing again just by cutting and pasting for the city. And I'll just cut and paste that. And place it right underneath here. And just change all the street to city. And then this is what I'll get. Next, for the country, let's say I want to get it like this with a select box. So I can come over here and add this, which will give me the choices for the select box and label it nice. And I can, if I want Canada to be the default, I can put in selected there. And also, if I actually run this right at the moment, it's not going to look that great. It looks kind of not in the keeping of the others, but I can use the exact same style just by putting in a comma select here, a group selector, and save that, and then it does look pretty good. Next, I want to use checkboxes, and I create another field set. How did you hear about us? So to end with, we can put in checkboxes for the different things that we have. And upon submitting this, let's put in some data. We can press send, and there's our data sent. You'll notice that the refer is stating on if it's checked. And if it's not checked, we don't even see the refer button. If one's checked, we have an on. So this isn't going to really help us know which refer it is. So we've got to do a little bit more. So the way to address that is to put in the value for each one of these. And upon doing that, then we'll know whether it was referred or not by the web, newspaper, or other. Just save that. Have a look at this. Press the clear button. Put in an address. And we'll pick the first and the third. And you'll see that it's separated by a comma, but we now can tell which checkboxes were checked. And that ends the video on forms and styling forms.